Emeka was the only son of his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Okafor. He was very hardworking and was living the life he wanted. He was rich and very successful in his business. One morning, he woke up and called Amaka and told her it was time to take her to see his family. Amaka was the lady Emeka intended to get married to. Amaka was a beautiful young lady who had lived in the city all her life. She was used to a more civilized world. She was so respectful and her sense of dressing was something to be noted. Amaka and Emeka lived together in the city. She was so excited when Emeka told her that he would be taking her to see his family. She thought to herself, this was the best time for them to start making plans for their wedding after the visit to Emeka's family. They both prepared for that day with excitement. They got to Emeka's parents' compound in the village. Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, Emeka's parents, were surprised when they saw Amaka. They were not expecting anyone to come with Emeka. Emeka introduced Amaka to his parents. Amaka greeted them and told them how she has been longing to see them. Emeka brought out everything they brought for his parents out of his car, and they all walked together into the house. Next day, Amaka woke up very late. She decided to get herself busy with some of the house chores. She started with cleaning the compound. Amaka stopped sweeping the compound when she heard Mrs. Okafor staring at her and screaming. She asked in fear, "What is the matter, Mama?" Mrs. Okafor asked her, "What are you wearing?" "Oh, Mama," Amaka said, "this is just an easy wear for me to walk with easily." Mrs. Okafor said, "You are almost naked and your body is barely covered." Mrs. Okafor told Amaka to go inside the house and get something to cover herself. Amaka dropped her broom and went inside to get a wrapper to cover herself. Later in the evening of that day, Mrs. Okafor called Emeka aside. She told him, "I don't like Amaka. I want you to forget about her." Emeka told his mother that Amaka was the woman he loves and no one can stop him from getting married to her. Emeka's mom told him, "Your relationship with Amaka would not work. In fact, it cannot work. First of all, she is not from our village. Secondly, the way she dresses does not look decent to be a wife. Thirdly, I have gotten a wife for you, and her name is Adaeze, the daughter of Uneka, my friend, a well-trained girl and decent girl. And in fact, you need to go and see the family and pay a bride price." Emeka told his mom, "Adaeze is too young and should be thinking of furthering her education and not to rush into marriage." Emeka told his mom that no one can force him to marry who he does not want to marry. This brought serious arguments between Emeka and his mother. Emeka called Amaka. He told her to pack her things. They are going back to the city. Amaka immediately packed her belongings and joined Emeka inside the car. Mrs. Okafor was so angry at Emeka and promised to deal with him. Emeka and Amaka both got back home. Amaka was worried about what happened in the village. It was obvious to her that Emeka's mom never liked her, and it would be very difficult for her if she eventually gets married to Emeka. Emeka talked her out of it. He told her she was his choice and no one can tell him who to get married to or who not to get married to. He promised her that soon everyone would have to accept the fact that she was the one for him. At the village, Mrs. Okafor went to see her friend, Uneka. Mrs. Okafor greeted her, but Uneka refused to respond to her. Mrs. Okafor asked her, "What is the matter?" Uneka told her the rumor she had about her son coming to the village with another woman. Mrs. Okafor denied it. She told her there is nothing to worry about. Everything is under control. Mrs. Okafor told her that she was here for something very important. She wants Adaeze to follow her to the city, to Emeka's house, and stay with him for some time. Nneka agreed to allow her daughter Adaeze go to the city with Mrs. Okafor. Adaeze was a young, beautiful girl, the only daughter of her parents, who just completed her secondary school. She was just 19 years old. All she knows about life was to get married and have kids and take care of family. She was not exposed to any form of social life. Adaeze was aware of Mrs. Okafor's plan for her and Emeka, and she agreed to it. Mrs. Okafor came to pick Adaeze, and they both left for Emeka's house. Emeka, seated in his living room, watching the evening news, had a knock on his door. He was not expecting anyone. When he opened the door, he saw his mother and Adaeze standing outside the door. He greeted them and let them in. He asked his mother, "What are you doing here? And why is Adaeze also here with you?" Amaka, who was inside her room, came out to greet Mrs. Okafor. On seeing Adaeze, she was angry and so furious. She looked at Emeka and asked him what is going on and why is Adaeze in our home. Mrs. Okafor interrupted her and said, "This is not your home. It is my son's home, and I have come here to bring his wife for him." Amaka was speechless and dumbfounded. She went into her room and started packing her things. Emeka ran after her, telling her to calm down. Everything is under control, and he would handle everything. Amaka was not ready to listen to what he was saying. She continued packing her things, and she told him, "Your mother don't want me. She don't want me to be your wife. I can't come between you and your mother. It is better for us to go our separate ways." Amaka packed her things and walked out of the house crying that night. Emeka went to meet his mother and told her, "You see what you have caused?" Mrs. Okafor replied, "This is exactly what I came here for, and I feel accomplished." The next day, Emeka went to meet Chinedu, his closest friend, and explained to him all that happened. Chinedu told him, "Listen to your mother. After all, your mother knows what is best for you. These days, city girls cannot be trusted. Adaeze is a village girl and a young girl. You can easily tame her because she is not that exposed and don't know how city life works." Emeka, though not convinced enough, but decided to give in. Days later, Mrs. Okafor left Emeka's house, leaving Adaeze behind. One night, after Emeka finished his dinner, he called Adaeze to follow him into his room. Emeka told her, "Be free, this is your home. You know why my mother brought you here." Adaeze, who was looking so shy, answered Emeka by nodding her head. Emeka then said, "I want you to move into my room and be sleeping on the same bed with me." Adaeze was so happy. She said to herself, "At last, everything is falling into place." Months later, Adaeze went back to the village to see her mom. She told her mom about everything that has been happening, how things has been going fine with her, and how Emeka has been so nice to her and takes care of her. Before she could finish what she was saying, she felt nauseous and started vomiting. Her mother looked at her and announced to her, "You are pregnant." Nneka was happy, but at the same time she was worried. The bride price of Adaeze was yet to be paid, and she is pregnant already. Things have to be done before anyone finds out. Nneka went to meet Mrs. Okafor, her friend, and gave her the news. Mrs. Okafor was so happy. She stood up and began to dance for joy and celebrate. Emeka was informed and he came down from the city. A date was picked and the bride price of Adaeze was paid, as tradition demands it. This time, Adaeze finally moved in with Emeka and everyone was happy. One day, when Adaeze was coming back from the market, she was heavily pregnant at this time. She met a lady about her age who offered to help her with her bags. Ifeoma offered to help Adaeze after seeing the way she was struggling to carry her bags with her pregnancy. Ifeoma looked at Adaeze, realizing how young she was, and she was already pregnant. Ifeoma asked her, "Are you married?" Adaeze said yes. Ifeoma went on to say, "You are too young to get married and too young to get pregnant. Don't you want to enjoy your life? Don't you want to see how the world looks like? Don't you want to mingle with people of your age? Don't you have a dream of how your life should go? Why did you choose this boring lifestyle?" Adaeze smiled and said, "A girl is supposed to get married immediately she is matured enough and start her family, take care of the family, do the domestic work, and pray for her husband." Ifeoma laughed at her and said, "I don't think you are up to 20 years and you know so much about keeping a family as well." "Well, for me, I would make sure I'm about 29 years old before I get myself a rich husband. Anyways, if you need a friend, I stay at the next block. You can come to me. Take care of yourself." Adaeze got to the house after dropping everything she brought from the market. She pondered over what Ifeoma told her. She began to think and tell herself she rushed into marriage. She should have furthered her education and mingled with people of her age, and not to get married to a man who would tame her. As time went on, Adaeze and Ifeoma's friendship grew stronger. Adaeze always confided in Ifeoma and talked to her about her marriage with Emeka, and Ifeoma on the other hand advised her negatively. Emeka, noticing how close Adaeze and Ifeoma were, he told Adaeze to stop her friendship with Ifeoma. He told her Ifeoma is not a decent lady. She is not the type of friend you should be seen with. But Adaeze would not listen. She continued with her friendship with her. Adaeze began to see things differently and her marriage began to suffer. After Adaeze put to bed, she became a different person. She was not the same lady Emeka got married to. She'd go out without informing Emeka. She also come back late at night and always smelled of alcohol. This brought serious issues in their marriage. Whenever Emeka talked to her, she responded so rudely to him. At this point, Emeka knew he might have made the biggest mistake of his life. He decided to talk to his mom about it. His mom said, "Give her some time. She would come around. She is just a young lady who is acting her age." But as time went on, her behavior became worse. Her dressing became so revealing, and the type of friends she kept were nothing to write home about. At this time, Emeka has had enough of Adaeze. He informed Adaeze's mother about it. Instead of her talking to Adaeze and correcting her daughter, she told Emeka, "Stop stressing my daughter. Let her be. The fact that she is married to you does not mean she should not have a life." Emeka was so surprised at the way Adaeze's mom handled the situation. One fateful day, Emeka had a project he was working on at work. He has a limited time to get it done. He informed Adaeze he might not be coming home that night due to the workload. Adaeze called her friend Ifeoma and they decided to meet that night with some of her male friends. Adaeze, before leaving the house that night, called a young homeless girl that stays at the front of her street to help her babysit her child for the night. She promised to pay her a huge amount of money and feed her. Adaeze left her child with a stranger and headed for Ifeoma's house, who was waiting for her with two of her male friends. They all left together to one of the biggest hotels in town. That night, the police received an information that some people who were lodged at the hotel were with drugs and other illegal hard substances. The police raided the hotel, and where they got to the rooms Ifeoma and Adaeze were lodged, they saw some illicit and illegal drugs in their possession. This led to the arrest of Ifeoma Adeze and the two young men that took them to the hotel. They were taken to the police station. Emeka at work received a call from the police station telling him to come to the station immediately. On getting to the station, he demanded to know why he was called. Adeze was brought out of the cell where she was kept. The police asked Emeka if he can identify her. Emeka said, "Yes, she is my wife and the mother of my child." The policeman later said she was caught in the group of two young men and a lady who are in possession of illicit drugs. Emeka was shocked. He was so disappointed in her. He asked Adeze, "What are you doing in an hotel? Where is my baby?" Adeze fell on her knees and started begging Emeka. "It was Ifeoma that invited me. I never knew they were in possession of any illicit drugs." Emeka bailed Adeze out from the police station, and immediately they both got home. He packed all her things out of the house and told her to go back to her family. She has committed an abomination. The marriage is over, and his family are coming to collect back the bride price. And as for their baby, his mother will take care of him. Mrs. Okafor felt guilty. She begged Emeka to forgive her for forcing him to marry Adeze instead of Amaka. "I thought she would make a good wife and can never be carried away with pleasures that come with life. I never knew she was going to change," Mrs. Okafor said. Days later, when Emeka was returning from work, he decided to get some stuff from a grocery store. He heard someone calling his name. The voice was so familiar. As he turned back to see who it was, he saw Amaka, who was heavily pregnant. She and her husband had come to the store to get some things. Amaka asked Emeka, "How have you been and how is your family?" Emeka said he is doing great. Emeka was so surprised to see how decently dressed Amaka was. He wished he never listened to his mother. He should have been happily married to Amaka. But right now, things are the way they are. Emeka prayed for God to give him a second chance in getting a right spouse for marriage.